KubeCon EU at the JFrog booth. I'm here at the DevOps Speakeasy with Nuno. I had the pleasure of meeting him in person yesterday. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the audience.
So hi everyone, I'm Nuno, NunixTech at NunixTech at Twitter. I work as a technical writer for SUSE Rancher.
Awesome.
And I'm a fan of WSL.
Yes! So we got in a really interesting discussion and I wanted to share this with everyone.
Yep.
Tell us more about what your passion is right now, especially with regard to WSL.
So, exactly. So I'm a community member of WSL. I've done some talks and I've done many blogs. And the reason we were discussing it's that for me WSL is like a link or a missed link for now between cloud native, we are at KubeCon, right? And Windows developers. From time to time, we can feel a little bit like put aside, right? Even though Windows is the main OS everywhere, but I think like WSL could be really a good link to bring all these Windows developers communities.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I remember in the past, as a developer myself, I was supplied with a computer. It was a Windows machine. I had all of the tools that I needed for, the policies and stuff for the company. So it wasn't really a choice of mine, but I used Windows also in school. When I graduated from college, that was what I knew was Windows. It wasn't until much later that I got a Mac. But I think this is important because there's a lot of Windows developers out there.
No, true, and some communities, like I will just name drop just one community that I work with from time to time is Meshery from Lee Calcutt around the service mesh, let's say, project. And there's a lot of students that go into this community and they have Windows laptops. And suddenly, when Meshery was coming out, or other projects, let's say, we will talk a bit more about JFrog just after, but it's like the docs or the helper guides are for Linux based, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you said, or let's say an enterprise company or a company, right, it will have your Windows laptop. Your domain settings will not allow you to install other things, right? Because you need Outlook, you need SharePoint, you need other tools, right, for Windows domains. And WSL here, being a feature of Windows, you can control it through actually domain policies also, and it's better. It's like it's not another software. Congrats to VirtualBox. I mean, I love VirtualBox, right? But it's still another additional software. Here we are talking about a feature, and WSL works as a micro VM. So think Firecracker, think all these small micro VMs that we have in the Linux world, for example, that shares memory and CPU, so you don't have to reserve an amount of memory or CPU to run WSL. It just runs behind the scenes, kind of, right? And so after that, you have your own Linux distribution on it. And now you can run the documentation, the helper guides that you see on the net directly on your machine, right? Through WSL.
Yeah. So I've been really impressed with WSL so far, but I have to admit, I do have a Mac and I develop on a Mac. But I have a funny story. My son came home with a Windows machine and he had, WSL on there.
Right.
And I stole his machine for much of the week just to experiment with it, try out different things.
Good.
And it was pretty nice. It's enough to possibly bring me back to Windows, or at least get myself a Windows workstation.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? It might happen in the future. I know with Docker captains, we need to be able to run, like Docker desktop, be able to install it on Windows as well as Mac. And that was something that I was able to do, was borrow my son's computer in order to play with that software on his machine.
Actually, funny story, like WSL has two versions. So whenever I'm talking about WSL, it's important to know that I'm talking about WSL 2, which is the micro VM. So the first WSL is like a layer, a translation layer. So it's not really, it feels like Linux, it does Linux things, but at some point in time, it's blocked by the translation capabilities. While WSL2 being a micro VM, it runs a Linux kernel, right? So the user space is 100%, and the technology behind, you can really install stuff on WSL2 like you will do on your VM or let's say machine. Still has some, of course, it still is a micro VM, so it still has some limitations that you will not have in bare metal, let's say. But overall, so far, like I said during the talk, like challenge me, tell me that your technology, you want to run your technology or project on Windows via WSL, but you don't know because maybe there's some limitations. Tell me.
Yes.
And the community will really accept the challenge. We are really here to bind people, not to really separate, right? It's not Windows against Linux or whatever. Cloud native is what I like to say is normally it should be OS agnostic.
Yeah.
So let's be really OS agnostic. Let's have docs, let's have projects that run everywhere.
Yes.
And for Windows, well, WSL.
Yes, that makes sense. So welcome to cloud native Windows developers out there. We know you're out there.
Exactly.
I just want to put in a little plug. I met someone the other day who thought that JFrog only supported Java projects.
Wow, okay.
Because of the J in JFrog, that makes sense, right? And initially it was written in Java, so I mean, that makes sense.
Assumptions.
But .NET developers, we support that too. So yes. So please go ahead and check us out too. Use your WSL functionality for Docker Desktop especially.
Definitively.
And welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Come in.
Thank you, Nuno, for your time. Really appreciate getting to meet you, and I'm excited about what you do. And
thanks a lot to Melissa.
time.
Hey.
Bye.